Brian Baldinger, All Cities NFL analyst, joining us on the program after a dub. We haven't gotten to do too many of these, Baldy. We get to break down some pretty good football by the Arizona Cardinals going into Pittsburgh, and I think really taking it to Mike Tomlin's team.
Well, goal line stand in Pittsburgh is always a good measure of how you play defensively. To have a 15-play drive at the end of the first half to score a touchdown, that's always a good measure. To get the ball with 4:25 left in the game and never give it back.
Wow.
And take a victory formation. I mean, those are good. Those are all positives about a team that, I think is, especially coming off their worst defeat the week before against the Rams, to be able to turn it around like that. That tells me something about the guys inside that room.
Baldy, when you turned on the tape and you looked at it, was it more of what the Cardinals did or what the Steelers didn't do?
Well, I mean, Trubisky fumbled that snap that kind of turned the game around and gave him good field position. They took advantage of it. I think when you can keep a team out of the end zone, I mean, that's your doing. That's not the other team's failure. You did that. You got T.J. Watt out there, Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick. I mean, you got some elite players on that field on the other side that have been doing it a long time at a high level. And, you're able to compete with that. And then to see the way they ran the ball in the second half, that's impressive. I mean, I don't care. That's in the rain, bad field, on the road, and you run the ball like they did. Froholt played great. It was just a good offensive line performance. And I'm sure James Conner was excited, to do that against, his team and the field that he played college and pro on. But I think it was more than that. I think the guys up front got the job done.
Let's talk about Kyler Murray, Baldy. We've had you on every game after Kyler Murray's performance here a month in. I think it's fair to say he's been a little bit uneven. Some ebbs and some flows to be expected, right? New formation, new offense, new personnel. Coming off major injury, I thought this was his best game. The box score I thought didn't do it justice. Big time splash throws that you want from a franchise quarterback. What was your overall assessment of K1 in this game that I really think could be a jumping off point the rest of the year?
Well, I think it's being determined right now as these games play out that Trey McBride is his guy.
Yeah.
That's his go-to guy. And, every quarterback needs that. And, it's not Hollywood Brown and it's not anybody yet, but it's Trey McBride. And I feel like, in the time that he's been back, whatever that is now, how many weeks, that's the guy that he's leaning to, that he's going to, that the plays are being called for, that's getting open. And then he's doing something with it after the catch. So I think that's good. Look, those aren't easy conditions to play in. I mean, it looked like a monsoon out there. And that's you always are concerned about ball security, ball slipping out of your hand, all that. He didn't have any of those issues. And then, he was the fastest guy on the field when he had to be. So I thought he conducted things real good and real well. And honestly, the first question you asked, is that more of Pittsburgh's undoing? I thought the Cardinals were the better team on the field. That's what it looked like to me. Take the names off the back of the jerseys in Pittsburgh. They look like a better football team to me.
Yeah, you throw the records away. You would have never guessed, which team was the 7-win team.
Well, yeah, exactly.
The 2-win team.
I kind of felt like that watching it.
Yeah, and when you watch Trey McBride, especially during that 15-play, we'll call it a 109-yard drive because there was a penalty in there. He seemed to kind of show off the diversity of his skill set. This has been a futile position here in the desert. Like, they haven't had any good tight ends since the Cardinals moved here to Phoenix and now Glendale and the Arizona Cardinals. And people feel a little snake bitten. They've tried to identify players in the draft at the tight end position. They've tried to bring in some bigger names. Zach Ertz played the position at a high level for a short time, but why should people be excited about Trey McBride and that he can sustain the success?
I think a couple reasons. One, he's got, like, I always look at a player's movement. Like, he's got elite movement. Like, he's very fluid. He stays on his feet. He gets out of his breaks very easily. Like, nothing looks like it's hard to him. And then he catches the ball very naturally. Like, I wouldn't make any comparisons to Travis Kelce or anything like that. But he reminds me of Travis Kelce, the way that he moves, the way that he runs routes, the way. Now, I mean, Travis is, light years ahead as far as the quarterback and the whole thing, but just the way that he moves. I bet I've never seen him warm up, live. But I bet if I watched him out there just running routes, getting warmed up, that I'd see similarities. The way, like when you watch Travis run, he's just a big guy that moves very fluidly. And I feel Trey is very similar to that.
You mentioned Yellow Frohl. I'm glad that you did. I thought the offensive line had one of its best performances given the elements and the opponent of the year on Sunday. Would you say like this is a run first offensive line, like they can do that really well if they have to be asked to pass protect 40 to 45 times a game? That's not a recipe for success, because I think that's crazy. If you would have told us before the season that's where this team was heading in December, but that's an offensive line to me that showed immense toughness that we typically don't get in Arizona with our offensive lines. Well,
they look like they're having a lot of fun run blocking. That's for sure. They're 20 yards downfield in a couple of those runs that broke. They only dropped back 25 times in a game.
Yeah.
And so, you really limited the amount of damage a guy like TJ Watt can do, or Alex Highsmith. They got there a couple of times, but, they didn't change the game. And so, the fact that they were able to run it so effectively, I mean, that's just, look, I know you got the bye week, but you got San Francisco coming up.
Right.
That's a complete team. And I'm not looking that far ahead, but like if you can run the ball with effectiveness against that group, you're onto something, and you're onto certain types of runs. And Connor could be the guy. Michael Carter came in off the street from the Jets. He had a couple runs that popped. I just think like that's you're trying here in the last 5 weeks to see what you can build upon going into next year. Like, what is it that we identifying players, identifying plays, identifying strengths? Like, I think that should be a part of the evaluation process right now. And they ran a gut play where they pulled Hernandez and for a hold out there, and they got him out there moving. And I haven't seen them really run that play, this year. But, they got to the perimeter, and, are they more athletic than we think? I mean, I kind of know what Will Hernandez is, and he's a guy that just lines up and, he never missed a game at Texas El Paso. I don't think he missed a game at the Giants. I mean, he's just been a very sturdy guy. He's not the most athletic player, but to see him get out there and lead the sweep, I thought that was encouraging.
He's a nasty guy too, and you like it. He's got a mean streak to him, Baldy. And, I thought that the Cardinals had a real true commitment to the run, right? I mean, James Conner at half had 1.7 yards per carry. He ends up at 4.2 yards per carry over the century mark, 2 touchdowns. James Conner, when you talk about guys you want to move forward with, under contract, third of a $21 million deal next season. We thought, maybe it's a foregone conclusion that the Cardinals would move off of him as they start to kind of clean house during this rebuild. But he seems to be a guy that you hold on to. He's going to be like 7th in cap hit as far as NFL running backs going into this offseason. Don't you think he's probably locked himself in at least one more season with the Cardinals?
Well, I mean, I don't pay that close attention to the economics. I know it's a huge part, but that's not really what I focus on. So I know that's a factor in a lot of these decisions. But I mean, if I was coaching a team, I would want James Conner on my team. I mean, first of all, you just point to him. Like, he was given basically a death certificate, and he bounced back from cancer and all the things he did. I mean, he's just an inspiration. The game was taken away from him. Like, he embraces every opportunity, and just, he's just a very together person, period. Football player, not, I mean, he's just very together. You need people like that in your locker room. You gotta lead from within. And I would want him on my team in whatever role. But I mean, just looking at him in the second half, 15 carries, 88 yards, like, he can still do it. So I would, if I was a Cardinal fan, if I was a member of that team, I would want James Conner on my team.
Let's talk about the show title today is really kind of looking back while looking ahead with Jonathan Gannon. This season, I think, it's no surprise. A lot of people pick the Cardinals to finish last, first in the draft. And they've got 3 wins, which isn't anything to write home about. But I think greater than that, Baldy, like the competitiveness, the state of this roster, like, do you think that Jonathan Gannon, albeit in a small sample size this season, has done an admirable job given the expectations of this team, given he's got a quarterback coming off major injury? Like, what have you seen from Gannon specifically that could give Cardinal fans hope for 2024 and beyond?
Well, I really, outside of that Ram game, I mean, they were competitive in every game, and they had chances in the fourth quarter, even with Josh Dobbs, plenty of chances to win some of the games. the Cowboys still, I mean, that might separate that loss to the Cowboys had to the Cardinals. That might separate them from being the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
That might be what they look back on and go, well, they did run the ball for 220 yards against us. So it's not like they didn't, like we gave it to them. They earned it. But I think, you're just trying to establish a culture. It's not always about wins and losses. The Colts with Peyton Manning, I'm not comparing them to the Colts, but, they won 3 games the first year. They won 13 the next year, and they were a perennial playoff team after that. You got to set the standard, how to practice, the culture, the expectation. I think some of that stuff can get done without necessarily winning a lot of games, and being competitive and playing hard and doing all the things that we have talked about. I think they're on the right track. Now, look, Houston got the quarterback. They turned it around right away. I think they have more marquee players than the Cardinals do right now. Everybody would love to be able to, do what Houston's doing this year in 1 year with D'Amico, but sometimes it takes 2 or even 3 years. So, but I feel like they've turned the corner as far as what Cardinal fans can expect when they go to watch them play. Like, they're going to see a team that's going to play hard. They're going to blitz. They're going to pressure the quarterback. They're going to force him into some mistakes. Like, you're seeing that. They had some good pressures the other day, really good pressures where they got after, Pickett, and they got after Trubisky a couple of times on third downs, got off the field. So I think they're on the right track. I mean, I would give them a thumbs up at, after 13 weeks right now.
Baldy, people love your content, especially your breakdowns, and it helps them identify, because I guess to people like Johnny and myself, we can't look at the tape and see what you see. When you look at this Cardinals team on film, we talk about the big names, Trey McBride, James Conner, Kyler Murray. Does anybody stand out to you? Has anybody stood out to you that maybe doesn't get as much recognition from this Cardinals team, that's kind of flying under the radar but shows up on the film?
I mean, I think Gardeck is a good player. I think he was guard. I mean, he beat Broderick Jones clean on Sunday, and he'd been just a pillar in his 4 or 5 starts at right tackle. He beat him clean. Like, he just always shows up. I think that when you look at a guy like, I'm a Budda Baker fan, a Jalen Thompson fan, so I like the way that they play. But Dante Still's got the fumble. We've talked about him, as a young player and a rookie. He's out there starting, playing. It's a loose ball. He gets it, changed the game. I know it was laying on the ground, but he got there. He kind of gets there first a lot. So he's kind of jumped off. Ojulari has some good movement. We've seen him throughout the season at times where he looks like he could be a threat off the edge. I think the experiment of Zaven Collins at outside linebacker is not a dead experiment. I think there's a place for him and a role for him in this defense.
My last question for you, Baldy, kind of pivoting again from a Jonathan Gannon perspective. There's this trendy thing in the NFL right now where you can only have an offensive head coach to succeed, right? Like, Bill Belichick's struggling. Robert Saleh's got his issues in New York. And these are really good football people, great football minds. Jonathan Gannon, leader of men, culture setter. Like, do you believe that a defensive backgrounded head coach can still have success, maybe championship success in today's NFL game?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, D'Amico Ryans, was a linebacker in this league and defensive, coordinator and linebacker coach. I absolutely, because really, it's about leading men. It's about, vision and having leadership. It's great if you have something from the Shanahan tree, from the, Sean McVay tree of offensive prowess, because I think those are difficult. Mike McDaniel, like, these guys have offenses that are very difficult to, but we've seen a lot of those guys from the tree that weren't necessarily, offensive gurus that have success. And so I just think it's about leadership and setting a standard and setting a vision, and you can coach, you can come from that side of the ball and be a great head coach. I just believe that can still exist, and it still does exist. I mean, it just depends on, like, if Mike McDaniel in Baltimore gets a head coaching job, he's doing a great job with the Ravens, the number 1 defense. He's got a college background. He's coached linebackers. Like, I think that guy would be a great head coach, just being around him and knowing how smart he is. how intelligent, how he connects with players. Like I think he would be a good choice if somebody, reached out to him to want to hire him.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, especially when you hear Gannon talk about it. He said, if you're going to hire me to coach this team and then also to coach the defense, it's not going to work. And he kind of knew that he could maybe even thrive at a higher level from the head coaching position, even more so than, his defense last year for Philadelphia was unbelievable. And you're seeing that Philly defense struggle now, Baldy. So it seems to be the right choice for the Cardinals, who were one of the last teams to hire a coach. You got to check out the most recent episode of the All City NFL show. You guys broke down that Niners Eagles beatdown that went down there in Philly. I highly recommend, if you haven't subscribed to it wherever you find podcasts, to check it out. Baldy's given even more info there. Watch it, listen to it. Baldy, always great to catch up with you.
Okay, guys. Yep. I'll talk to you next week now. Enjoy the bye week. Okay.
Thanks,
Baldy. See you guys.